Hello and welcome to the Curated Beauty Podcast. I'm Jessica Christie, CEO of Beauty Culture Med Spa and the founder of the new functional and regenerative business, Cultured Wellness. From my start as a physician assistant to now not only being a practitioner but leading my own businesses, I've been on a unique journey through health, beauty, and entrepreneurship. Join us as we explore everything from skincare secrets to leadership lessons. Whether you're passionate about beauty or striving to balance life's challenges, this is your space to connect, learn, and shine. Let's dive in. All right, you guys, welcome to the Curated Beauty Podcast. I am your host, Jessica Christie. I want to talk about understanding business transformation. I think that so many of us, especially in the aesthetic industry, I talk about this a lot, never meant to be as big as we are. And we didn't mean to lead these big teams of people who have big things going on in their personal lives and then expecting them to grasp all of the change as the business evolves. And I was talking to one of my very close friends, I'll call her, and former business coach as I kind of have graduated, and I'm just taking this time to process all the things that I've learned this year, which has been so much. And I was being explained by her the whole process of the J curve in representation to how a business undergoes significant change and what happens and how this all goes down. And then I wanted to take it a step further and talk about kind of the initiation of each of these components of this J curve, and then also talk about different people and different thought leaders that have experienced these things and have offered insights throughout this whole concept and curve. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, what is this J curve? Imagine an XY axis. And this is going to then obviously have some sort of phenomenon on the axis, or else it would be nothing. And what it is marking is the graphical representation of the initial decline followed by a subsequent increase. And that increase can be very exponential, and it is representing performance and productivity and any other metric of interest that you have in your own personal business. For me, it looks like scale. It looks like honing in on the right team. It looks like services that match our vision and mission. It may look like other locations. It may look like my role drastically changing. And whatever that may entail, when businesses do undergo significant change, they experience this J curve, meaning that you do see the initial dip. So here's a breakdown of the process. First, we have this decision to change. So we have the initiation that happens where a business identifies a need to change, whether it's due to external pressures, internal inefficiencies, or just like a really strategic pivot. I called my shot in January and I said, this year, I'm not going to grow. I really want to put systems in place to scale. And that was my whole main priority for 2023, which I've accomplished that. I will admit to you that towards the end of 2022, I just happened to stumble upon what things like KPIs meant and SOPs. I did not know what those acronyms even meant. And so I really needed to put those into place in order to grow the way that I wanted to. And so when you think about the expectation, there's often a lot of initial optimism about change with stakeholders expecting immediate positive results. And I really thought, okay, this is exciting, we're changing, but little did I know what was next, which is the initial dip. I guess I'm glad I didn't really realize that this J curve just happens. The longer I'm in business, I realize, yes, there's a lot of uniqueness, but there's also a lot of, I would say, themes that run through all businesses. And I am not unique to I feel included in being a business owner and a legitimate one, that my business also follows these kind of themes, I'll call them. So this initial dip happens, and this is where you're implementing new systems and processes. I'm coming up with these KPIs that we're measuring, which if you don't know what that is, it's key performance indicators. How can you know that your business is doing well if you don't have a way and a system in place to measure it? How can your team members know if they're doing a good job if they don't have a system in place to measure it?
if you're asking something of them and you haven't told them what the mark is, how are they supposed to hit it? So if you're not creating these KPIs, you're really setting yourself up for failure. But sometimes when we first implement them, and as the business starts to implement those changes, there's often disruption to the usual workflow, and that feels uncomfy for your team members. New systems might not integrate seamlessly, and processes might not be as efficient initially. I remember when I first started doing weekly roundups, since we have a weekly team meeting every Monday, and I used to not do that. But when you're asking people to come before work, when you're going over the graphs that you've stayed up all night creating, you're still asking your team to be patient with you as you mull through what is important to track and what's not. And so that might be uncomfortable for people. That's the whole trial and error phase. Not every new approach will work perfectly from the get-go, and the business needs to test and iterate and refine strategies in order to do the right thing and come out with a system that works for the business on the other end. So then comes in communication challenges where you're ensuring that everyone is on the same page, and this can be really difficult. And this is also where you may notice that there are people on your team that just aren't aligned with how you're changing. So misunderstandings or misalignments can lead to further inefficiencies, and that is your opportunity to have these good team members that you want to keep say, okay, I recognize that that's not working because, again, you're having these processes that are now frequent check-ins and all of these things. And you're saying, what do you need to see from me to see this picture more clearly? Which is, to my next point, explaining the why. It is so crucial for leadership to communicate the reasons behind change, ensuring that everyone understands the bigger picture. How can you expect someone to do something if they don't know why they're doing it? You can't keep those things close to the vest as a leader. I think that a perfect example of this is me on my own health journey and my supplements. And I am so non-compliant sometimes, especially if I don't understand why I'm taking something. And I will go further to say the timing of the supplement. I'll just take it whenever it works for me if I don't know the reason for the specific time that I'm taking it. I don't just follow the rules. I need to know why. And being that I have a very good leadership team and I have basically everyone on my team is just a natural born leader, they need to know the why. And the likelihood that your team is very similar, if you're listening to this podcast, is also likely. So then we have the next stage, which is the uncomfortable new. And this is what I am calling this because you have everyone kind of bought in, but there is some resistance to change. People are naturally going to be resistant to change. There's unfamiliarity. This can be really daunting, and it can lead to discomfort. It can lead to pushback. And that's where this really gets uncomfortable. This is where we start to see the drop-offs. You might see team members who aren't fully bought in to the change and the whole direction of the company that start to disengage or even leave the organization. And their departure can be due to a lack of belief in the new direction. It can be that they're feeling very overwhelmed, that they don't have enough direction, or simply that they just prefer the old ways and they need to find a company that wants to sit in kind of that stagnation versus someone who's implementing a whole new system and a whole new change. And then after that, we see an upward swing. So this is the adaptation phase where as time goes on, your team's going to start to adapt to the new systems and processes. The initial hurdles have been overcome and efficiencies really begin to emerge. You see team cohesion. You just really start to get that synergy. And those who have stayed are often the ones who do believe in the new direction, and they believe in you as a leader, that you have their back, that the why is very clear. And they start working together and helping each other navigate this change. This is where it is so important, and you will not see team cohesion if you do not have a very clear mission, so these people know where you're marching and leading them. If you do not have a clear vision that you can paint and visit very frequently, and if you don't have core values where everyone on your team feels like, yeah, that is me. From there, you start to see the visible results. The benefit of the change starts to become evident, whether it's increased productivity, higher profits, another metric that you get to add and see grow. The positive outcome validates the initial decision to change. And when you experience that is when you graduate to the next stage in the J curve, which is this exponential growth. And this is where you've shifted from growth to true scale. You have full buy-in with the team members that you now have that are fully on board with your systems. They're optimizing them. They're helping you point out weaknesses in them. They can be the eyes and ears when you're gone because they trust the system. And then the business can really harness the full potential of its changes. You start to pick up momentum. You see that snowballing. So the upward trajectory isn't just about recovering lost ground that you missed out on the last year by implementing these systems, but the business can now achieve heights that it wouldn't have reached without that transformation. And then you see future proofing, and having navigated a significant change successfully, the business is better equipped to handle any future challenges and changes. I really like to say that in this past year of any hurdles that I've faced as a person, personally, entrepreneurially, I will see either a closed door or something that happens where it's a bummer or a letdown or just like a huge problem that we have to work through. And I think about it now as something where I'm excited to work through it because I know I'm going to learn something on the other end of that. I just literally broke my toe the other day, and it sounds so silly to break your toe, but I literally can't walk. And taking something like not being able to walk and slowing someone like me that's super high performing down, it really shakes you mentally. And I can lose it and feel bad for myself and feel like, gosh, this really sucks. Or I can lean into what it's teaching me. And the lesson is there. I need to learn it and embrace it, or else something else is going to take me down, as my friend gently reminded me. So I really want to think about it in terms of the insight from thought leaders now. So the J-curve concept isn't new. Like I said, many thought leaders and business owners have weighed in on its implications for business and undergoing change. So here's a deep dive from some different people. So I want to talk first about the comfort of the status quo. And Seth Godin, marketing guru, often talks about lizard brain. This is the part of our brain that fears change and prefers the status quo. And when businesses face this initial dip of the J-curve, the lizard brain can become a very powerful force. And this makes leaders want to revert to what's familiar and what's comfortable, because not only are they a little nervous for change, if they're honest with themselves, they now have people that are validating that fear in them, and it makes them want to just go back to the beginning, which is really golden handcuffs for never growing and never really scaling. The implication for this is recognizing this internal resistance, and that's the first step to overcoming it. So leaders must be very prepared to combat their own doubts and the doubts of their team. Like general in a war, stay very firm and hold the line and know that they're going to win this battle. Number 2 is a lull in doubt. So Simon Sinek in his book, Start With Why, I love that book. It was one of the first books that I read that really started to make me think like an entrepreneur. Sinek really emphasizes the importance of understanding the purpose behind actions. When businesses hit the lull in the J-curve, revisiting the why behind the change can provide the motivation to push through. So like I said, always make sure that you are telling your team why for everything that you're asking of them. When team members jump ship during the lull, it's natural for business owners to question their decisions. But Simon Sinek suggests if the why is strong and clear, it really can serve as this guiding light through really tough times, much tougher times than even just changing systems in your business. And then there's the caution and the danger of reverting. Dr. John Kotter, who's known for his work on change management, warns against declaring victory too soon. When businesses see a slight improvement after the lull, it's very tempting to revert to old ways, thinking that they've achieved enough. It's the same thing as when people are establishing a new habit. That habit has to be done for a very long time before it really becomes second nature, because it's going to be human nature to revert back to old ways. They're just more ingrained in us. And especially when we start to see some relief and reprieve in what we wanted to change, it's really difficult to hold strong. So The initial recovery from the lull is not the end goal, and businesses really need to push past and realize the full potential of what the actual change could bring them, and not just small little doses and nuggets, but in the big picture, which again, our goal is really that exponential, explosive scaling growth. And then we look at the power of persistence, where we're going to talk about Angela Duckworth. In her research on grit, Duckworth found that perseverance is a key predictor of success. So the ability to stick with a task, especially when it gets tough, can make all of the difference. And the implication here is the J-curve lull is a test of a business's grit. So those who are able to push through it, especially your team members that are following your charge, they should be so proud of themselves. Despite the challenges and the doubts, they are more likely to see long-term success, and this is going to lead into their own lives as well. And then really as a leader, the role of leadership plays big into this one. And this is someone who's probably impacted me, I would say maybe the most. Another one, Brené Brown. She is renowned for her work on shame and vulnerability. And Brené suggests that true leadership involves embracing and taking uncertainty and risks. And this J-curve really embodies this, because with leaders needing to navigate the uncertainties and the lull and rallying their team, they are leaning heavily into vulnerability because they have not seen the other side. They're taking this jump and this leap and they're dragging everyone with them, but they can't always see around the corner. And so you really have to be prepared to show that vulnerability, not pretend that you have all the answers, which is the beauty of a team, by the way. Your team is not less smart than you. You just happen to be leading the charge, and then you have all of these unique abilities with admitting that they don't have all the right answers, but that you're all committed to navigating alongside this change. So in essence, the J-curve is more than just a graphical representation. It's a journey of resilience and belief and leadership, and business leaders must recognize these challenges when you're asking your team to change. Draw on insights from other thought leaders, because we've all been through these kinds of things, no matter how unique your business is or how unique your path is, and then remain committed to the vision to navigate this curve successfully, because it's beautiful on the other side. Thank you for joining me for this little talk about the J-curve, and thank you and shout out to Kaylee Lindholm of KLC Consulting for sharing this with me during one of our one-on-one sessions. If you are looking for a business coach, I highly, highly, highly recommend their team. And if you want to get in touch with me, I can point you in the right direction, or just go to klcconsultants.com.
And that's a wrap on another enriching episode of the Curated Beauty Podcast. If today's conversations resonated with you, I urge you to share it with someone you believe could benefit from it. Let's spread the beauty, knowledge, and empowerment far and wide. For more in-depth resources, information about who we are, or if you're interested in becoming a patient or training directly with me or one of my team, visit our website at beautyculturespa.com. Don't forget to stay connected with us on Instagram for all the latest updates, behind the scenes, and beauty wisdom. Follow us at beautyculture.medspa and at B Cultured Wellness. That's the letter B, Cultured Wellness. Thank you for being with us today. Keep curating your beauty both inside and out. Until next time.